Okay, in front of you, that you can see here in front of you, we have six different types of wrenches I use. We're going to go ahead and start out with this one here. Okay, now the first type of wrench we have, this is a Craftsman wrench. This is called known as a combination wrench. Okay, what it is on this wrench here, what makes it a combination is on one side you have an open end that's used for bolts. Let me get a bolt so I can show you how this works. Okay, on one end of the, one second, let me set these down. Okay, let me set those on my table. Okay, yeah. So what I was saying is that on one end of the wrench, one end is going to be open, as you can see here. It's got an open face, and the other end is going to be closed. Now, what this is used for is if you have bolts and things like that. This would be used if you have bolts that you want to access and you want to unloosen. That's what this side would be used for. Now, the one thing about this is because it's open, if you have an area where, if you have a bolt, for example, that you can't get a whole wrench around. Let's say, for example, you're not able to get the wrench around the whole bolt. You can only get it in part way. For example, if you have a wall or something that's over here and you need to get into it, that's where this would come in handy. This allows you to take it on and off the bolt fairly easily without any difficulty because it's open on the end. Now, the other end of the wrench is is closed. It's in a circle, as you can see here. Now, one of the advantages of using it is when you grip a bolt with this end here, you're basically gripping it on three sides. There's nothing gripping it on this side. You're gripping it on three sides. When you use the closed end like this right here, you're gripping it on all six sides in a circle. This is better if you don't want to run a risk of stripping the bolt. This is going to give you better strength for turning and things and loosening if you have a closed box and wrench like this here. Now, as you can see, the bolt's surrounded on all sides, which gives you really good gripping power. Now, the only thing is, because it's in a circle, because it wraps around, you can't take this off, whereas you can if you have the open one. Okay? So just keep in mind, depending on the type of bolt you have, on the situations, sometimes the open end will work better, and then sometimes the closed end will work better. And you're going to notice that these come in a wide range of sizes and things. And on these, normally they have the size of the wrench and everything is listed on the end here. As far as this is a 9/16 as far as what type of wrench size and everything they have. These come in various sizes depending on the applications that you have. And this one's made by Craftsman. Okay, so this is known as a combination open end box end wrench. That's what this one's referred to as. That's our first one. Okay. Now our second wrench is going to be is known as an open end wrench. Okay, but the difference with this is both ends are open, but the wrench I showed you before, this 9/16 wrench that I showed you, let me show you one of the differences. This is 9/16 for bolts, and this is 9/16. This end and this end are for the same size bolt. These are both the same. The only difference is one side's open and one side's closed, but they're both the same size bolt on this wrench here. Now, this new other wrench I have, this is also an open end, but this is open end, but this one has two different sizes. Okay, one side's going to have 9/16 and one side's going to have 1/2. Now, they're both open, but the difference is one side is large. This is for larger bolts, and this is for smaller bolts. This is known as a combination wrench. You're going to have a 9/16 and a 1/2 inch. This is made by Craftsman, but it's going to have one size is larger than the other, and they're both open. They're both open end wrenches. They're not closed like the other one was I showed you. This is another one that I use a lot with my tools and things. Now, one of the advantages to this is if you have applications where you're limited on space. Basically, you can get two different size wrenches out of one using this right here. Whereas the other one I showed you, you can only get one because it's the same size on both. This is different on each side. This is larger and this is smaller. So you can essentially get two wrenches in the space for one using these wrenches here. Okay? Okay. Now the next wrench I'm going to show you, this is a specialty wrench. Now, some of the equipment, as you can see, now this is what's known as a specialty wrench. Some of my equipment and things actually uses these specialty wrenches, like my scroll saw and things like that. there's an adjustment that actually uses a special wrench like this. Now this is a specific wrench that's designed to be used with a tool. When you buy certain tools, they'll have wrenches and things that come along with them like this. Now, the only thing about a wrench like this is it's made of very, very thin metal. It's not very thick. This isn't designed to handle a lot of stress, this wrench, because it's not real thick. Okay, this is specifically designed to use with a tool that it came with. So remember, different types of tools and things will also have wrenches that come along with them. And also, another thing too, by having it thin like this, depending on the area that you have to access, you're going to notice that this wrench is a lot thicker. If you look at the difference in thickness, this is about 4 times thicker than this one here. So one of the reasons that is if you're trying to get into tight spaces like on the equipment, that's another reason why they make special tools like this. So that way you can get into areas and things that require it to be that thin versus having something thick like this. Okay. Now another wrench I have, this is another one that I have, okay? This is very similar to the one I just showed you. Now this is another specialty wrench that I had. Now this one is I've used this on my table saw to adjust to remove the blades and things, and also to adjust the motor clamps. Now this is another specific one that's used for tools. You're going to notice that both ends are closed. Okay. Now and also now the difference here is both ends are the same size on this one here, but this is basically used for things like table saws and things like that. If you have adjustments that you have to make. Now one correction. This is a little larger than this one. There are different sizes to fit my table saw. This is another one of these specific tools that's not very thick, but it's designed to be thinner to be able to fit in a tighter area. Now, if you have specialty tools like this that go along with your equipment, one of the things I highly suggest you do is make sure you keep these wrenches in with your manuals that go along with each of your power tools and your equipment and things. These are very easy to get lost, and you want to make sure you keep them organized. So if you have a bag, for example, that you keep with each of your power tools that has a bag, I usually keep a bag, and in that bag it has instructions and things inside the bag, and it also has the wrenches and things that go along with it, and I keep those next to the equipment so I don't lose them. Specialty wrenches like this, when you lose a specialty wrench like this, these can kind of become hard to find, especially if you have an older piece of equipment like I have in my workshop. So remember, if you have specialty wrenches like this that go with specific equipment, make sure you keep it in a bag or something with the other manuals and things for that particular machine. That way you don't lose these. Okay? All right, now these two wrenches I have next, these are very similar, but there's some slight differences in them. Okay. Now this is known as an angle wrench. Okay, you're going to notice that there's a little bevel here. Now this also is another one that specifically goes with one of my power tools that I was going to show you. But I've used this on other applications as well. Now what you're going to notice is there's an actual bevel here. It's actually beveled. There's an angle here. This is designed, if you have something in the way, like a bolt or something in the way, this is designed to allow you to go over that bolt and still grip, and then it allows you to go over the bolt so you can still grab it on the end here, as you can see here, like I'm showing you. By having this little bevel right here, it's designed that way specifically, so if you have a bar or something in here, it can actually span over that and reach a bolt that's at a lower level. So this is actually a specialty wrench, another one of these specialty wrenches. The only difference is this one's beveled with an angle on it, and as you can see, it's got a closed box in on the end. Okay, that's another specialty wrench. Now the one next to it I have, this is also a specialty wrench. Now the difference here is, if you notice the difference in the bevel, if you can see here in the picture, this one has a much heavier angle than this one here. They both basically do the same thing, but they're designed for different pieces of equipment. Now this one that I have is designed to go with my drill press. This actually is designed to loosen the brackets in the back of the motor mount if I want to tighten up the belt and things in my drill press. That's where this specific one comes in handy. And once again, I go ahead and keep it in with my tool bag that goes along with my drill press so I don't lose them. Okay, this just gave you an idea. Let me go lay the wrenches out again too here for you. Okay. All right, lay those all out. Okay. So this just gave me an example of 6 different types of wrenches and things that I use in my workshop. Now, the one thing I'm going to suggest, if you have wrenches like this in your workshop, you want to try to make sure you don't get too much moisture around them. Moisture can cause a lot of rust and things to develop in these. So one of the things I suggest you do is, if you have a toolbox that has a gasket on it, that's a good thing. Otherwise, try to keep these out where you're going to have extreme temperature changes, or you're going to have things like a lot of moisture, because moisture will eventually cause rust on these wrenches as well. So taking care of these wrenches properly is very important. And just remember that when you have specialty wrenches like these four here, make sure you keep them in the bags along with the manuals that go with the equipment that they're with, so you don't lose them. And then the other thing too is when you're getting these, one of the things I suggest when you're buying wrenches like this, I like to have a combination of open end and close ends, and also I like to have a combination of these as well, varying in different sizes depending on the application that I'm using. Now, one thing I was going to mention too, very important, when you're using these wrenches and things like that, if you have, when you're tightening and untightening, you want to make sure you watch what's around you when you're untightening it. If one of these things is on a bolt, for example, and it breaks loose, you don't want to get your fingers or something pinched in here between the bolt and whatever you're tightening, a bolt or the clamp or whatever you're tightening. So always be aware when you're loosening these things, you want to make sure you watch what's behind the wrench and in front of it. That way, if it breaks loose, you're not going to end up pinching your finger or something like that when this thing breaks loose. These things have been known to slip off occasionally, so you want to be real careful when you use these, especially if you're working with larger bolts and also bolts that are rusted. Now, if you have a bolt that's rusted, one of the things you can do is you can use like a penetrating oil, you can use like WD-40 to help loosen that bolt up before you tackle it with one of these wrenches. Okay? I hope that this video has been helpful for you, and this just explains some of the wrenches and things that I use in my workshop. As always, I want to thank you again for tuning in to the Kurt's Place channel here, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye now. Take care now.